We all remember the world standing still. 2020, the gears of global society ground to a halt, and for a moment, we were forced to look at our lives without the noise. But then, something strange happened. As the world reopened, the clock didn't just start ticking again, it began to race. Think about it. 2021, 2022, 2023. They didn't just pass, they evaporated. We are now half a decade removed from that global turning point. Yet for most people, the last 6 years feel like a single blurred weekend. This isn't just a feeling, it's a psychological red flag. When your life lacks new, meaningful milestones or conscious shifts, your brain stops. Recording in high definition, it starts compressed filing. We call this the Great Acceleration. You tell yourself you're waiting for the right time to start that business, fix your health, or change your circle. But while you're waiting, the calendar is sprinting. You aren't actually moving forward. You are simply buffering, stuck in a loading screen, while the movie of your life plays on, mute, in the background. This video isn't a motivational speech. It's a documentary-style intervention. We are going to deconstruct the 5 psychological anchors holding you in this normal life. If you have the stomach for a hard truth, stay with me. Because today at Success Growth, we aren't handing out sugar-coated lies. We are examining the bitter medicine required to stop the clock and start the progress. The comfort trapped the sidewalk reality a few weeks ago. I witnessed a scene that stayed with me. Near a busy transit hub, a row of people were sleeping on the bare pavement. Cars were rushing by, horns were blaring, and the air was thick with exhaust and noise. Yet they were fast asleep. To an outsider, this environment was chaotic and uninhabitable. To them, it had become normalized. It adapted to a reality where the hard ground was their bed and the city's roar was their lullaby. We often look at such scenes with pity, but here's the cold truth. Most of us are living a digital version of that sidewalk. You might have a roof over your head and a consistent paycheck, but you have fallen into the same psychological snare, the adaptation of mediocrity. You've become comfortable with a life that is far below your capability. You eat the same food, engage in the same surfacely oval conversations, follow the same repetitive commute. You think twice before spending a few extra dollars you endure, the subtle frustrations of your families, financial limits, and you tell yourself, this is just how life is, but it isn't. You have simply developed a high tolerance for a low-quality existence. Your normal is actually a cage. Just as those people on the sidewalk have accepted the noise as silence, you've accepted your stagnation as stability. When you truly sit back and audit your daily habits, you'll realize that your current lifestyle is just a slightly more polished version of survival. You are surviving on the middle-class sidewalk, oblivious to the fact that just behind the noise, there is an entire world of high-level experience you are currently too comfortable to pursue. The architecture of an escape. To understand how to break this cycle, we have to look at the most famous, impossible escape in history, Alcatraz, 1962. This wasn't just a prison, it was a fortress. Sitting in the middle of the freezing, shark-infested waters of the San Francisco Bay, the walls were massive, the guards were elite, and the record was perfect. No one had ever escaped alive, but Frank Morris was different. When he arrived, he didn't see an unbreakable fortress. He saw a system with flaws. While other inmates spent their years complaining or adapting to the misery, Morris and a small group of men spent their time observing. They tracked the guard rotations, the vibration of the pipes, and the composition of the concrete. They worked in the dark for months, using nothing but sharpened spoons to chip away at the ventilation ducts. But the most revealing part of the story isn't the escape itself, it's the man who stayed behind. There was a 4th prisoner who was part of the plan. He had helped dig the tunnel. The way was open, but at the final moment he was paralyzed by fear. He wasn't afraid of the water. He was afraid of the immediate discomfort of the unknown. In Alcatraz, the punishment for a failed escape wasn't death. It was usually a few days in the hole, a dark isolation cell. Yet hundreds of prisoners chose a lifetime of captivity, Over the risk of 3 days in the dark, we do the same thing. We are terrified of the discomfort of a 6-month grind. We fear the isolation of leaving our mediocre friend groups. We treat a temporary setback as if it were a life sentence. The difference between the 99% who rot in the prison of the normal and the 1% who find freedom isn't talent. It's the willingness to endure a few days of the whole to secure a lifetime of liberty. At Success Growth, we believe that escaping mediocrity isn't a matter of luck. It's a matter of architecture and the guts to crawl through the tunnel you dug. The monkey and the peanut, the mental ram crisis there, is an old story about how hunters in certain parts of the world catch monkeys using nothing but a jar and a handful of peanuts. They choose a jar with a narrow neck, just wide enough for the monkey to slide its open hand inside, but too narrow for a clenched fist to pull back out. The monkey reaches in, grabs the peanuts, and suddenly finds itself trapped. It could be free in a second if it simply let go of the bait. But the monkey is so fixated on the small prize that it refuses to release its grip, even as the hunter approaches with a net. You might laugh at the monkey's stupidity, but most of us are gripping our own peanuts every single day. In the modern world, your peanuts are the trivialities that consume your focus. It's the constant checking of notifications, the social media drama, the obsession with celebrity gossip, or the need to watch every new series the moment it drops. You feel like if you let go, if you delete the apps or skip the parties, you'll miss out on the world. In reality, your grip on these small things is exactly what's allowing the world to pass you by. This creates what we call a mental RAM crisis. In computing, RAM is the working memory that handles active tasks. Your brain works the same way. While your long-term memory is vast, your working memory is strictly limited. Every piece of digital junk, every minor resentment, and every useless current event occupies a slot in your mental RAM. When you overload your system with noise, there is no processing power left for high-level execution, creative problem-solving, or deep focus. You don't lack motivation, and you aren't lazy. You are simply overloaded. You are trying to run a high-performance life on a brain cluttered with background apps that serve no purpose. To achieve success growth, you must have the courage to open your hand and drop the peanuts. The prize isn't the snack. The prize is the freedom to move. The habit of blindness, the golden pebble there, is a legendary story of a man who sought a philosopher's stone, a pebble that could turn any metal into gold. He was told he could find it on a specific beach, among millions of ordinary stones. The true stone would feel warm to the touch, while the others were cold. To ensure he didn't pick up the same stone twice, he developed a system. He would pick up a pebble, feel its temperature, and when it felt cold, he would hurl it into the ocean. He did this for weeks, then months. His movements became mechanical, became a machine of pick up, feel, throw. One day his hand closed around a stone that was burning hot, but because his body was on autopilot, he threw the golden pebble into the sea before his brain could even register what he had found. This is the tragedy of the modern adult. We're living in a state of habitual blindness. Recall being a child in school. A 30-minute lesson felt like an eternity because your brain was wide awake, absorbing every detail, every sound, and every sensation. You were consciously present. Today, an entire year vanishes in what feels like a week because you are no longer present. You are simply a collection of automated routines. When you live on autopilot, your brain stops time-stomping your life. You wake up, check your phone, go to work, eat the same meals, and scroll until sleep, because nothing is new, nothing is recorded. You are throwing your golden pebbles, your design, to the ocean of time, without even feeling their warmth. The success growth mindset requires you to break the machine. You must move from being a passenger in your own mind to being the operator. If you don't wake up and start feeling the stones, you will eventually reach the end of your life, only to realize you threw away the very thing you were searching for. The success growth blueprint. Now we move from theory to execution. Most people watch videos like this and feel a temporary spark. but they fail to change because they hit three invisible walls: confusion, inconsistency, and a lack of momentum. First, let's address confusion. You might say, I want to escape, but I don't know which direction to run. You are waiting for a map before you start walking. This is a scientific error. In physics, clarity is a byproduct of motion. Think of a ball and bucket experiment. If you are trying to land a ball in a bucket from a distance, you cannot calculate the perfect arc in your head. You must throw the first ball. The data from that failure tells you how to adjust the second throw. Frank Morris didn't have a blueprint. For the entire escape on day one, he started with a spoon and a vent. Each action revealed the next obstacle, which then dictated the next solution. If you are confused, it's because you aren't doing enough to generate data. Second is inconsistency. People fail because they treat success as a marathon. They have to run once rather than a mental RAM update. They have to perform daily. You must positively brainwash yourself. If your goal is financial freedom, your working memory must be saturated. With that reality, you need to curate your environment, the books you read, the people you listen to, and the metrics you track until the old version of you is overwritten. Finally, there is the lack of momentum. We often wait for motivation to strike before we act. This is backwards. Motivation is the result of action, not the cause. When you complete a small task, your brain releases dopamine, which creates the energy for the next task. This is the success loop. To build a life of success growth, you don't need a grand 10-year plan today. You need a single, aggressive action that forces your brain out of its slumber. Stop searching for the right way and start finding any way. The law of reaction and the final verdict, the ultimate trap, is believing that standing still is safe. In the world of physics, Newton's third law is absolute. For every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. But in the psychology of success, there is a law of inaction that is even more brutal. Every day you choose to do nothing, there is a reaction. You aren't just staying in the same place, you're actively training your brain to be more hesitant. Your confidence is decaying, and your window of opportunity is narrowing. The greatest risk you face isn't failure. It is the continuation of your current trajectory. If you want to break the autopilot cycle, you must implement the action motivation loop. Most people wait for a feeling to move them. They have the formula wrong. They think motivation gives action gives success. In reality, the biology of the brain dictates a different sequence. Action gives motivation, gives more action. By forcing yourself to start, even when you feel cold, you trigger the neurochemical momentum required to keep going. Here's your final verdict. The next 6 months are going to pass. Regardless of what you do, you can spend them like the 99% of the prisoners in Alcatraz, complaining about the walls while staying within them. Or you can spend them like Frank Morris, chipping away at your limitations. One spoonful at a time. Take a pen and paper. List the peanuts you are currently refusing to drop. Identify the mental RAM thieves that are slowing down your processing power. Then decide that starting today, normal is no longer an option. At Success Growth, we believe that freedom is earned in the quiet hours of focused execution. The tunnel is open. The only question left is, do you have the courage to crawl through it? Your time is your only true currency. Stop spending it on things that don't pay you back. I wish you the strength to be uncommon.